Okay, it's the moment you've been waiting for. It's time for them licks. And we're going to break the sections down into pentatonic licks, country-inspired and hybrid picking, plus a few more sort of scalar-based and arpeggio licks. Now, the biggest section of this DVD is going to be the pentatonic licks because Zakk is predominantly a pentatonic player. He's inspired by, you know, the likes of Jimi Hendrix and Frank Marino from a band called Mahogany Rush. If you've never come across that band before, make sure you check them out. Frank Marino is an astonishing guitar player. But Zakk's also influenced by Tony Iommi, well, another pentatonic player, but I think more so for his riff playing, but still a great soloist as well in that kind of real old school metal approach. Zakk also listened to Al Di Meola, and that was how he managed to develop his ferocious right hand for, you know, his picking. And obviously the southern rock of bands like the Allman Brothers and Lynyrd Skynyrd are using those major pentatonics. And something else that Zakk fell in love with whilst on tour with Ozzy, and that was country music. And he spent a lot of time studying from Albert Lee's instructional DVDs, and that was very apparent on the second album that he played on for Ozzy Osbourne, entitled No More Tears, where there was a lot of very country-inspired solos. There was a couple of country licks on the first album, but they were, you know, it really became quite apparent on the second album that he played on. And later on, when Zakk branched off and did his first solo record, which was with a band called Pride and Glory, which to my mind is one of the greatest rock albums you'll hear. It's one of my favourites, definitely in my top 5 rock albums. That was a real mixed affair of country rock, blues and metal, and even some kind of bizarre acoustic country kind of very humorous stuff at the end of the record. So a really, really well-rounded record if you can, you know, get to hear that. So to my mind, that is some of his best soloing, and you can really hear the bluegrass and the country influence in there. So, without further ado, let's launch into our pentatonic licks. We've got quite a few to get through. Our first one is a very common sequence which you'll hear all over his solos, from the stuff that he played with Ozzy to his solo stuff to the Black Label Society. It's a very, very straightforward pattern, and it just descends down the shape 1 of the minor pentatonic. I've chosen to play this in E minor pentatonic. I could have done it in D minor, which is the saddest of all keys, of course, but I've chosen to do it in E minor. And the pattern is as so. We play 15, 12, 15, 12, and then 14, 12. Obviously, I'm moving down through the top E, B, and G. Then back to the B and play 15, 12, 14, 12 on the G, 14, 12 on the D. Back to the G, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12. And then we finish off by bending 15 up a whole tone on the B string, but we drop it down to 16. And then back up again. So here's the lick. Okay, let's turn the volume up a bit, put a bit more distortion. Hear that wide vibrato that I was talking about earlier on. Also with the alternate picking, try to keep it as relaxed as you can. I find this style of playing personally quite tricky. I'm not really a big alternate picker. I'm much more of a legato style player. That came from listening to Van Halen a lot when I was much younger. There was 2 camps, Van Halen or Yngwie. That's what everyone was listening to, and I was very much more into the Van Halen thing. So developed more of a legato approach to my own personal soloing. So even going through some of these licks for myself as your tutor has been quite a challenge. Try to with the picking use a bit of palm muting. Now I'm not playing a Les Paul, which is fairly obvious. Obviously, Zakk does use a Les Paul, and we'll talk a little bit about gear in the gear section a bit later on. I suppose this is kind of Les Paul. It's a single cutaway. It's kind of a cross between a Les Paul Junior and a Telly. The only problem is I've got a floating bridge on this, and I have to be quite light with how my palm rests on the bridge. I do like to rest down by the bridge. I'm just getting this fleshy part of my palm to rest onto the strings. So instead of getting a very clear note, I get quite an aggressive sound with the palm mute. And especially if you accent, that can be very, very effective. So, yeah, lots of wide vibrato. So one more time. So there's our first lick. Let's take a look at our next lick, which is another pentatonic affair. This one uses fast hammer-ons and pull-offs. It's got a little bit more of a Jimmy Page vibe about it. Zakk's very much into that whole kind of a jam band mentality, and has spoken at length about, you know, just loving the way that Led Zeppelin sound on their albums. They just sound like, you know, four guys in a room going for it and playing. So there's definitely a Jimmy Page influence in Zakk's playing. And this next lick is using the blues scale, so one of the scales that we looked at, or another scale we looked at earlier on. We slide into the 15th fret of the G, the blues note, and then we simply play 12 on the B, hammer on 15, pull off, and then play 15 on the G. And we are just repeating that. And at the end there, I'm just bending the flat 7, which is the D note, 15th fret up to 17. Up to you with the picking. I do 2 lots of different picking there. I either pick inside the strings, which means I play the G string with an up pick and the B string with a down. You see that going on there. Or I use sweep picking, which is something that I do like to do quite a lot, which is where you can see I'm just gliding down, doing 2 downstrokes. So you get... You can hear once you warm up with that lick, you can get quite a lot of speed out of it. Sounds very cool with the wah-wah pedal. Pushing the wah-wah pedal down gradually to really accentuate the sound of the lick and can add a lot of excitement, a lot of dynamic to your soloing. Okay, let's take a look at our next lick, which is a cheeky little number based around the E minor pentatonic scale. But we're adding in, it's a 3-note pattern. We're basically just filling in the gaps, which is something that Zakk does quite a lot. What I mean by filling in the gaps is when you visualise the pentatonic, he'll do that kind of thing quite a lot. You know, putting in the chromatic notes as passing tones. So this next lick then, quite straightforward. We play 12 on the A string, forgot my strings there again, 13, 14, but we repeat the 14. And then move that down onto the D string. Play 12 on the G and the B, 14 on the D, twice, and then back to 12 on the G and the B. So put the distortion in. You can hear with the palm muting, it's quite an aggressive sound. That's a lick similar to one found on a track called Losing My Mind off of the Pride and Glory album, which as I said, is an outrageously good rock album. Okay, the next lick is another pentatonic lick, which I must admit I pinched this one off of the Pride and Glory album as well. As you can hear, I kind of like that record. Sorry, I like the older stuff, but they're much cooler to my mind. But this lick is off of a track called A Horse Called War, which I remember hearing that for the first time and just laughing and pointing at the speakers when I heard the riff. It was just I'd never heard a riff like it. It was just a new level of Zackness, if you like. A great pentatonic solo, and it really sounds like he's going for it as well. There's warts and all in the solo. He's just, really hacking away there. So quite a tricky lick, this one. It's going to be in two halves. The first half of the lick, it's A minor pentatonic, and we're starting off on the 5th fret, shape number 1, but we're sliding up to the E flat, which is our blues note, in shape number 2. So you can see what I mean about not just sticking to one position with your scales, moving in and out of the position. So we go, that's the first part, 8 up to 11, back down, 5, and then 8, 5, 8 on the B, 5 on the top E, and then slide 8 up to 10, back on the B to 5, and then pull off 8 to 10, 8 to 5, 7 on the G, and then 5 on the B. So that section slowly. We now bend the G at the 7th fret up to the 9, play 5 on the B and the E, pull off 8 to 5 on the B, and then play 7 on the G, and then we bend that up, release it and pull off to 5, 7 on the D, 5 on the G, and then finish 7 on the A string. So quite a tricky one, that. Again, this lick sounds great when you get the wah-wah pedal in there. Very, very cool lick. Quite tricky though with the slides, but as you can hear when you get the wah-wah in there and the overdrive, it can sound quite effective and quite aggressive. Okay, here's our next lick, which uses quite a few position shifts based around the minor pentatonic and the blues scale, and this is the second half of the Horse Called War lick, and it makes for a really good picking exercise. Once again, Zakk's filling in the gaps. I think that rhymed then nearly. We play 3, 4, 5 on the bottom E, and then 3, 5, 6, 5, open A, and then 3. So kind of a nice little picking pattern using the blues note there. We then slide 5 up to 7, it's quite quickly on the A, and then 5, 6, 7 on the D, and then 7 on the A, and then 5 and 7 on the D. So put that lick together so far. And then we have 5, 6, 7 on the G, 7 on the D, 5 on the D to 5 on the G to 7 on the G, and then bend 7 up to 9 on the G. Play 5, 8, 5 on the B, and then 7 on the G, 5 on the B, and then 7 on the G. So you can hear it's quite a fiddly one. Here it is slowly. Okay, put in the distortion and bring the speed up a bit. 2, 3, 4. And a bit more up to speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another lick that sounds really cool with the wah-wah pedal. And if you put that back to back with our previous lick, it's a really effective little pentatonic phrase. Okay, let's take a look at our next lick, and what we do is we start off by bending the 12th fret of the B up a whole tone, and then we play 9 and 12 on the B, and then 9, 12, 9 on the top E, back to 12 on the B, and then 9, 12 on the B, 9 on the E, and then we got a massive stretch there up to 14 on the top E. And we just keep repeating that. You can repeat that as many times as you like, and finally we'll come down. So just 14, 9 on the top E, 12, 9 on the B, 12, 10, 9, 12, 11, 9 on the G, and then 11 on the D. So, another cool little phrase that's really good at building up speed and dexterity with your picking hand. Quite an effective little pentatonic picking pattern. Okay, our next lick is also inspired by one of the solos off of the Pride and Glory album, and this is from a track called Shine On. It comes from the outro solo section. It's a real manic jam session, totally live. I love the way it comes in with the riff after the it's like a false ending, hear all the amps humming, and I believe that Zakk actually broke a string whilst he was recording this particular take, and they just left it there. It's just 3 guys in a room just going for it. Very cool. Using the G minor pentatonic, the shape number 1, we play 15, 17 on the A twice, same on the D string twice, 15, 17 on the G, 15, 17 on the D, then on the G, back to the D, then the G, and then 15, 18 on the B string. So you get this. We then go to the G string again and play 15, 17, 15, 18 on the B, and then 15, 18, 15 on the top E, 18, 15 on the B, 18, 15 on the E, 18, 15 on the B, 18, 17 on the G, so it's blues scale. Then we play 18, 15 on the B, 18, 17, 15 on the G, and then 17 on the D, and then 15, 17 on the G. So a lot of between 18 and 15, and obviously including the 17 there. So I'll play the lick slowly, and a lot of repetition. Again, when you get a lick like this down, it's never going to be played the same way twice, so experiment with it. So here we go. Make sure you get that wide, fast vibrato in at the end there. Okay, now we're going to take a look at our next lick, which is another classic Zakk figure. A little repetition idea, which you can move this all over the neck in various positions. We're using pattern number 1, the E minor pentatonic scale, and it's a 16th note triplet figure. And we play 15, 12 twice on the top E, and then we play 15 and 12 on the B. It's as simple as that. And you can just use that to really work on your speed. Zakk does that a lot. He'll start the lick slower and gradually build up the intensity of it. And you can repeat this lick as many times. And the tail off of the lick, we bend 15 up to 17, and then bend the 15 up to 16. So, and then play 12 on the top E and the B, and then bend 15 up a whole tone on the B string. So I'll play the lick for you and see if you can get it. Here we go. Like I said, real simple thing, and you can just, really use that to build your speed. Okay, moving on to our next lick. This is another classic Zakk Wylde figure, and what I was talking about earlier on with the pentatonic scale, whereby he will utilise a couple of shapes at once. This is using a mixture of pentatonic and blues scale in the key of E minor. We slide in to the B flat note on the 15th fret of the G, and then play 12, 15, back to 12, then play the 15 on the B, on the B flat on the G string, and then 12, 17, 12, and then 15 on the G string. So it's all on the B and the G string. So. Okay, nice little pattern that. And again, you can move that onto other strings. We could play that on the top two. Cool little figure to build up the speed of your hammer-ons and pull-offs. Okay, let's take a look at our next lick. Now, this is kind of similar to the little 16th note triplet lick we looked at a minute ago, which was. Same idea, but different rhythm. And the reason why I included this lick is because of the fact that it actually shifts position within the beat. We're playing it again in the E minor pentatonic scale, shape number 1, and we're playing 14 to 12 on the G, and then 14, 12 on the D, but we just repeat the G string, so. And that's the figure. So here we go. 2, 3, 4. Nice little pattern that, which again you can use to really build up speed. And we could also play that on other strings. So if we move that down in the blues scale, play. Or if you wanted to play pentatonic, entirely up to you. Okay, here's our final lick in our pentatonic lick section, and this lick really proves the point of knowing your pentatonics in all positions. It basically covers every single position of the A minor pentatonic right the way up the neck, but we only use 2 strings. Start off by sliding 3 up to 5 on the top E, then 3 on the top E, and then 5 to 3 on the B. So that's shape number 5 of A minor. We then slide into 8 on the top E and play 5, and then 8, 5 on the B. So that was shape number 1. Now shape 2, so 10 and 8 on the B and the E. So slide from 8 up to 10. Slide 10 up to 12 on the top E. Back to 10, and then 13, 10, so that was shape 3. Slide 12 up to 15, play 12, and then 15, 13 on the B, so that's shape 4. Then we're back to shape 5, so that's 17, 15, 17, 15, and then shape 1, 20, 17, 20, 17, and then bend. So bending the 20 up to 22, so slowly. Add some distortion, a little faster. Bring the wah. Really adds to the intensity of the lick and sounds very Zakk.